people were like freaking out because everybody else in the room is like, trying to quit their day job. And I'm flying in with my private jet to learn from these guys. And I'm not the speaker. I'm not anybody else. I started a company out of my garage in 2017 from 0 employees in my garage to 1,300 employees in about 5 years. And along the way, started up another business and was able to exit both of those businesses over a 12-month period. My first one was valued at about 180 million, and the second valuation was at 340 million.
Hey, my friend, welcome back to the Underdog Millionaire, where we interview some of the biggest, the baddest entrepreneurs of our time right now. And we really dig into their underdog story, how they go through their pain, how they go through their struggle, and come on the other side as victorious champions. Are you ready? Are you ready? I am so excited. I have Chris Lee. He exited two, not one, two, not 7-figure, not 8-figure, 9 figures exit. And for those of you not good at math, that's over $100 million per exit, guys. Hello, you learn from the master, and he's super young as well. I'm so impressed. I'm so humble. Welcome, Chris Lee. How you doing, buddy?
Hey, excited to be here. Thank you, Dr. Chau.
That's awesome, man. So first question, what is your underdog story?
Man, the story is this, man. I've been an entrepreneur most of my life. I studied to be a doctor. Halfway through my senior year, taking the MCAT, decided that route wasn't for me, and I dropped out of the medical program, took all the prereqs to get into business, got into the business school, and then eventually dropped out of business school to start my first business. And so I started my first business when I was 24 years old. And I grew up with nothing. My dad was a school teacher. My mom was a stay-at-home mom, 7 kids in our family. And so learned a work ethic from a very young age. At the age of 9, got my first job. 12, I had to be providing for everything but underwear, food on the table. And so I wasn't afraid of work, wasn't afraid of, getting creative. And so started my first business when I was 24 years old, and it was a massive failure. Just tried scaling too fast, too quick. It was right during the economic downturn of 2008. And, 2 years later, I found myself filing for personal bankruptcy for $2.2 million, had car repoed right out of my driveway. I had a watch that I had won in a competition that I sold on eBay for $600 just so I could pay bills. Less than $1,000 in my bank account. Literally everything stripped from me. I've always been a family man of God, and at that point, me and my wife, we were young. I was 27 years old, and we just had our third child. Starting from scratch, and I built little businesses. Tried a bunch of different things. I owned a search engine optimization business. I owned a medical pendant company. I owned a coupon book. I flipped cars, flipped houses, had cattle, had bees. I mean, literally anything I could do to make a buck, I was doing it. And, realized that I had no idea how to scale. And eventually I went and spent 4.5 years working for somebody else with the intention to study and learn and grow from what other people were doing. And I got paid to be educated over the next 4.5 years working for other people, and eventually started a company out of my garage in 2017 from 0 employees in my garage to 1,300 employees in about 5 years. And along the way, started up another business, and was able to exit both of those businesses over a 12-month period time. My first one was valued at about 180 million, and the second valuation was at 340 million. And so it was, obviously that's a big story compacted into about a two-minute Reader's Digest version, but learned a lot along the way. Lots of ups, lots of downs, a lot of failures, cash in, cash out, all kinds of cool experiences. But it's been a fun ride.
That's amazing. So what is the keys to scale? 3 keys to scaling.
Keys to scale. Number one is having culture. And I know that's a buzzword for a lot of people. Everybody claims they have it or they want it or this, that, and the other, but it's actually creating culture by design, not by default. And And for me, one of the things I noticed going back and studying these incredible CEOs and entrepreneurs that were building strong scaling businesses, was they were very intentional about the culture that they were creating. And so for me, when we started out of my garage, it was creating that culture from day one, having the vision, the mission statement dialed in, the core values that we were going to be about, making sure that things were, non-negotiable. Like, for example, high fives every single day when we walk in and saying good morning, making sure that our focus was very customer centric, that during Thanksgiving and Christmas time, we would always focus on our community and giving back, and making sure that it was a atmosphere and a culture of like inclusiveness, and that we didn't own our people, that whatever time that they had with us was viewed as a foundation for the rest of their lives, and a focus on the whole human, right? Like, so one of the keys that in building my business was developing people physically, economically, with their associations and their spirituality. It wasn't just get a paycheck here, and really becoming a safe haven for them outside of their home lives, and where they could become whatever they wanted to within our organization. And so, there's a lot that goes into developing a culture on purpose. But that is the number one way to be able to go and scale, is you have to have a culture that fosters innovation. It fosters people becoming the best version of themselves. The second is the ability to take healthy risk, and knowing that every dollar that I make, I'm willing to reinvest and put back into the business, because most entrepreneurs, they rob the business as soon as it starts making cash. And from a standpoint, they want to feed their ego. They want to show to the world that they are successful. So they get the cars and the watches and the houses and everything else, versus saying, all right, great, I found something that works. I need to dig deeper, and I need to reinvest more, and I need to continue to push the limits of what I can do to make this thing scale. And that's what led us to be the sixth fastest growing privately held company in the nation, regardless of industry. Financial Times recognized us as that, and Inc. 5000 recognized us as the 12th fastest growing company in the nation, regardless of industry. And it was because of this. Like, we did not spend money on things that didn't make sense. We only spent money that would get a return on investment, and continue to plow that in and out. And we built real value in our business. It wasn't just a cash cow, right? And so we focused on building a management team that could manage regardless of us. We weren't the people that ran the whole thing, right? Like, we went and we targeted top level entrepreneurs from all over the space. And so because of that, this yielded the growth. This yielded the real enterprise value. Most of us as entrepreneurs, like I said, we build cash cows, and we just take the money instead of actually focusing on enterprise value, which is something that I can turn and I can sell to private equity or through an IPO or to the market that's worth hundreds of millions of dollars. And so that was our focus from day one, was to build a business that could scale and could sell. And so because of it, we had clean books, we had clean processes, we had clean SOPs, we had clean KPIs, and it wasn't perfect, from day one, but that was the focus.
Wow. That was absolutely agree, 100%. But easier said than done, for sure. So what are some key things when you build those SOPs, processes, that you can share with people? How do you even like build those,
Yep. So first of all, you need to look at the flow of your business as like different experiences, right? Okay, what's the overall customer experience? How, when they enter your funnel, whether they're a lead or whatnot, and they exit with your product, or if they never exit or whatever it may be. And you got to look at from a sales and marketing arm, you got to look at it from a operational arm, you got to look at it from a finance arm. And then you have to identify the key experiences that happen throughout that process. And you, as the innovator or as the visionary of the business, you got to say, okay, how do I want this to look? How do I want them to experience? And then you have to go through a bunch of if-thens. Like, if this happens, then this needs to happen. If this happens, then this needs to happen. Well, what if this happens? Well, then this, and this needs to happen. And you need to document these things. And so you create a standard operating procedure of exactly how a customer should flow through your funnel, should flow through the experience, the delivery of your product. Like for us, we were in the solar industry. Like, how should a technician approach a customer every single time? What is the script that they need to go through when they arrive at the home? What is the checklist that they have to go through in order to ensure that the customer experience is perfect? But what if this particular negative thing happens? Okay, this is how you treat it. What about this? This is how you treat it, right? And each of these things have to be well documented. And it starts off with like the key top high level things of that experience, and then it's slowly breaking down into more and more. And then really the one-off scenarios should be able to fix themselves. You educate your people to just make sure that they have a great customer experience. But if they're ever repeated, if you ever have two things happen twice, then you need to have a standard operating procedure. Okay, well, a guy fell through the roof this one time. Maybe there was just a one-off scenario. Let's just make sure to take care of it. Well, it happens twice. Okay, what happens when a guy falls through somebody's roof, right? And then you make sure, like I said, that's well documented, well trained, that people have access to that, that there's constant follow-up. Yeah, I mean, there's so much that goes into creating good SOPs, good standard operating procedures, but it's got to start at a very high level and thinking from the visionary standpoint of, how do I want my customer to experience my product or service?
How do I want my customer experience my product or services? Amazing. Okay, awesome. And I know that you are very big into mindset and self-development. So how do you think that has helped you? And what are some recommendations you can tell people?
Absolutely. So I spent over $1 million on my personal education outside of the traditional education platform. Yes. And so, I am a big believer in coaches and consulting and masterminds and everything else. And in 2015, I made a resolution that every quarter I was going to travel to be at something, whether that was a workshop or a mastermind or an event or whatever it was. And I've stuck to that. Even though I've continued to find good financial success, I'll go put myself in a room of people that know more about one particular subject than I am, even if I'm the most successful person in the room, right? Like, for example, there was something that I wanted to go and learn a trailer park investing, and I didn't know anything about investing in trailer parks. And so I went and I paid money to Chris Rude, who is who focuses on trailer park investing. And I spent, it was like $5,000 or $10,000 to go and be at his little mastermind, his little workshop. And then people find out that I flew there on my private jet, right? Yeah. And people were like freaking out because everybody else in the room is like, trying to quit their day job. And I'm flying in with my private jet to learn from these guys. And I'm not the speaker. I'm not anybody else, right? And like I said, this freaked people out that I was like willing to do that. I'm like, well, don't you prioritize your education? I do. Like, so I'm here I am. And, and so like that is an example of my prioritization of self-education, like mindset and everything else. I've spent all the money on anything, right? Like learning how to speak on stage, learning how to podcast, right? Like when I first launched my podcast, I talked to the top people that I knew in the podcast world and said, okay, what is the key to launching a successful podcast? And so I did that in June of this year. I launched my podcast, and within like 6 weeks, I was a top 50 business podcast in the world because I had guys like Grant Cardone or Alex Hormozy or different guys that are on my podcast right out of the gate. And I was doing all the right things and hitting all the right algorithms and spending the right money on promotion. And so for me, it's invest as much money possible into the things that are going to return money. And that's the same principle that I talked about with business, right? Like, stop investing money on things that don't get an ROI, right? Luxuries, nice watches, nice cars, those don't get an ROI. Like sure, they're fun, they're great to have, and I have them, but those were never my first purchases. It's always been my business and myself first from an investment standpoint, and plow even when I think that I shouldn't continue to plow in even more. Mm-hmm. and then you're going to get it. And so, I have a ton of books, and I've read, I have a 100 book list that I recommend to people. I've got some of my greatest mentors out there. Some of them are people that I've never met. They're authors, or, people that are dead. I'm a big religious guy, the books, the Bible, the Book of Mormon, heck, even the Quran. I don't follow the teachings of the Quran, but, learning from old prophets, old mentors, like there's so much out there to be taught. And so for me, it's just never being satisfied with where I'm at.
Oh, I love that. And you said you are also a spiritual Christian as well, right? So I love that. And a lot of my audience are Christians. So how does that has helped you through your journey?
Yeah. So for me, God is always first, right? Number one. And because of that, family becomes number two, and which is like really the highest priority on earth. And so for me, my family has always been a huge focus. I got married at the age of 21 to my beautiful wife, Andrea. We've been married 18 years. My oldest is about to turn 17 next month. I have 5 beautiful children. For me, like that's a high focus. And when I focus on my family, I focus on God, because for me, I believe that the family is an eternal unit that exists beyond the grave, and that Christ makes that possible. And for me, like meditation and prayer and, consultation with my Father in heaven are absolutely imperative to me finding success. And frankly, you can take all my assets, you can take all my money, but you can never take my belief in God. And when I went through failure, when I went through bankruptcy and all these things with that a lot of times ruin people, it didn't ruin me, because God was always first for me. My family was always there too. And I knew that those things were still true. And so regardless of me having these worldly things, I always had God in my corner.
Wow, I love that. Me too. So praise God for that. Where can people find you?
So you can find me on Instagram at Chris Lee QB like quarterback. That's on all major social media platforms, TikTok, Facebook. I post a lot on Facebook, stories and stuff on Instagram. We also have a community called Founder Acceleration, in which people who are founding and doing different businesses, and they're looking to accelerate and build up and become the best version of themselves. We meet together 3 times a month. It's a paid community to be a part of it. And then we do masterminds, and we're going to be hosting Founders Con this next year. And so, any of those platforms, or of course you can listen to my podcast. I've had over 50 episodes. It's called the Founder Podcast. Would love to add you as an active listener.
Awesome. Thank you so much for your time. Any last words you want to share with anybody?
The biggest thing in entrepreneurship in life is just realizing that you got to keep going, and never give up. And a lot of times you have goals in place that you think that there's a specific pathway to get there. Most of the times the pathway is completely different. That doesn't mean you have to give up on the goals. You just got to figure out a different path. And ultimately a door will open that will help you get there.
Oh, I love it. I love it. All right, everybody. It's been a phenomenal. You guys like it? Please hit Chris Lee up. He's legit OG. So thank you so much for your time. Have a wonderful day, everybody. 10X.